Hey, welcome everyone. I'm Dan Elsinger. I'm Application Support Engineer with exocad America. I'm joined with my colleague, Lucas Chardulo. So today we're going to show you some new features of our DentalCAD 3.1 Rijeka. So we're excited to share, and we hope you enjoy the webinar. Before we get started with the live demonstration, I'm going to just go over some brief slides here. Okay, so as I was saying, we're going to cover some highlights of DentalCAD 3.1 Rijeka. One thing to note here, any redistribution or reproduction or distribution or passing on in whole or part of this broadcast in any form to any other party at any time without prior written consent of exocad is strictly prohibited. So legal actions will be taken. And a copyright notice, again, just no recording. We are going to pre-record this for you guys, so it's going to be added to the registration form. One thing to bring up that we're really proud to introduce is our web shop associated with our website. So basically, every trade show we go to, we always get asked, how do we get training? So obviously you have your resellers, but and our independent certified trainers that are listed on our website. But now you can get training from our exocad team. So it's personalized introductory training for basically any module that you need help with. So you can have up to 25 employees that can participate, and you'll receive a certificate at the end of the course. And they will all be recorded, so you'll be able to have those recordings at the end of your sessions. And another great thing coming up is our Insights event. So for 2024, May 9th through 10th in Palma de Mallorca, we're going to have basically an event for all of our vendors and laboratories and dentists that come visit to collaborate with each other, and then also see new features of our latest software release. So we hope to see you there. Come join us. And yeah, so, and we do want to thank you guys for joining on and attending. So now we can get into the fun stuff. We can get into the live demonstration. Okay, so I'm gonna pull open my DentalDB here. Couple new features with DentalDB we'll just go ahead and cover real quick. So one quick thing you're going to notice right away is a 3D preview pane. So any scans that are loaded in or mesh data, you're going to be able to basically inspect that data before opening the case. You'll have full show hide functionality to make any objects visible or transparent, and it's the same functionality as within DentalCAD from rotating, zooming in, or panning objects. Another, I'm going to go ahead and click on a tooth here to show you some restorative options. So you can see, let's select the anatomic crown real quick. We've added on-stock abutment. So basically any of those pre-manufactured implant abutments that you can load in to design restorations on now. And then our overlay restoration. So this is more for like a 3/4 prep. So basically this was put in place to help out with any of those restorative cases that aren't fully prepped, and it allows a specified internal fit settings. So for today's demonstration, we're going to cover Smile Creator. And with that, we've chosen the mock-up restorative option. And this will allow us to really go through three options. So anytime you have a patient that's unprepped, you'll essentially be able to one, create a PDF and of the patient's photos with your design superimposed on it, so the patient can actually see what the restorative work's going to look like. And then two, we'll actually be able to finish the mock-up design. And you'll be able to 3D print or mill that design to where the patient can actually put on the mock-up into their mouth and actually wear it like a wearable diagnostic wax-up. So that can give them, the idea of what the restorative uh, options are going to look like. And then the third option is going to be creating a diagnostic wax-up model. So it's a really powerful sales tool that you can really work with, whether you're a dentist or laboratory, providing that patient what their new smile is going to look like, and get them on board with the restorative options. All right, so I'm going to load my scan data here. One thing we're going to cover here is tooth model files. So you can see this here. The software has recognized that this case has already been designed. And this is a really awesome feature. So it's a big time saving, for cases like this where a patient's not prepped already. And essentially you will go forward with the design. The software is going to automatically save our design files. So when we reload the case and change restorative options, we'll say from mock-up to anatomic crown, basically the software is going to allow you to load those previously designed tooth models. And that way you don't have to redesign the case. Whatever the patient already signed off on will be readily available for you. So when you have that new scan of the patient that's prepped, that way it's just a matter of connecting your margins and your tooth library that you selected. So I'm going to go ahead and select no, do not load for this process. Excuse me. Okay, so one thing to note, within the wizard workflow, we'll see start smile creator. So anytime you have more than one anterior restoration selected, it's going to give that workflow readily available. So within Smile Creator, one new change is beta feature. So you're going to see select face scan. We're not going to cover this in depth today, but I did want to note that this is a highly requested option. So within Smile Creator, you now have the ability to load a face scan as well. So today we're going to stick with selecting smile and retracted images. And to start that process, I'm just going to left click on load a retracted image, and then select the JPEG image here that we have in the project folder. So within here, what I'm looking for is two corresponding points on each data set that the software can align the data to. So I'm just going to select my incisal corners and my laterals for the retracted image, and then I'm going to select next. And then from there, you're going to see control points to where you can essentially scale the image and fine tune the alignment. So we can see we're actually already aligned fairly well. So it's a pretty easy process. You just left click, drag, get everything in a line, and then select next. Okay, now that we have our retracted image loaded, we're going to go ahead and left click on load a smile image. All right, and the great part about this is once you have the retracted image already aligned, the smile image is going to automatically align for you. So from here, we'll go ahead and select next. And this will bring us to the automatic lip curve detection. So within here, you can actually fine tune that selection. You can add points by left clicking and dragging. And then we just want to make sure that the opening of the mouth is within the perimeter of the selection. So just quick clicks, left click and drag to get those in position. And I'm going to select next, and that's going to bring us to the pupil detection. So typically you're going to have to make some slight adjustments due to reflections of light in the patient's pupils. But once those are centered by left clicking and dragging the control points, then all you do is select next. Okay, and start our design process. So I'm going to left click and drag my library in line with where I want my midline. And I can see my 4 working areas here. So I can adjust the smile design with any of the views that you see here. So I like to start off by adjusting my corners and getting my distals in place. So I'm going to left click and drag my control point and get my cuspid in line. And then I'm going to left click my distal corner of my laterals and go from there. So from here, within the main view, I like to turn on my preview so I can kind of see the libraries as I'm designing as well. So I'll toggle back and forth through the different viewpoints. And once I have my library somewhat scaled to the patient's arch form, I'm going to left click in the background, and then I'm going to move towards single teeth. So one thing, looking here, we can kind of see the patient does have a large diastema that, potentially that they would want closed. So from here, I'm going to kind of scale my teeth slightly to better fit that patient's arch form and their existing teeth. So we can get those more centered on the patient's preps or unprepped teeth. And get a better representation of the space that we have. So once that's present, I can then left click and drag from the center, and that'll scale the whole tooth, or the corners to just scale in the direction I want to. But when I'm working on anteriors, I like to utilize mirror movements. So from here, I'll left click and drag to get my sizing the way I'd like, close my spaces. And now I'm starting to see some areas that I want to change with my laterals. Potentially I want to come in another viewpoint, and I'll recenter here with these directional arrows, kind of cycle through the case, see all the aspects that I do want to change. Maybe want to roll my anteriors a little bit more towards the incisal edges of the existing teeth. Do that for my laterals as well. Change positioning from a gingival standpoint, and maybe correct some length as we're going through also. Okay, so let's zoom out a little bit, kind of look at where we're at with the patient. From here, we might want to make any wholesale adjustments. We can left click and drag in the background to create a bounding box. And any tooth that's within that bounding box, you're going to be able to adjust either rotation or scaling size and shape from there. From here, another great tool, you'll see freeform and measurements. So at any point, we can just left click on a tooth and get the length and the ratios that are put in place, and toggle through to make sure we're exactly where we want to be for that patient. Other than that, we do have freeform, as I was saying, and this will give a good representation also from a thickness standpoint that you can actually turn on and off, so you can kind of see how thick you are. So as I was saying, with our second option, we'll have the ability to 3D print this restorative option. And we want to make sure that we're actually thick enough when we do that. So I'm going to just slightly close my embrasures a little bit. From here, I'm going to hit OK. And anytime that you make an adaptation in a wizard when you're working with Smile Creator or the mock-up restorations, those tooth model files that I was talking about, they're automatically going to be saved. So I'm going to go ahead and select yes to overwrite that design. And then from here, I might do a little bit additional scaling just to kind of make sure they're at the proper thickness for us. So we still have our mirror movements selected. I'm I'm going to make sure I have a central selected, and then I'll just left click and drag to get that thickness where we want it accordingly. Maybe bring in our corners slightly for our laterals. And from there, we'll go ahead and left click our thickness in place too for our cuspid. All right, so from here, at any point, you can go back to your outline, make sure you're not too much larger than your existing teeth, toggle through the preview. And one thing too, with this lock view orientation, you can unselect this and actually turn off objects and look at it as you would through the normal process of design. So you may want to rotate, and that's what that lock view orientation does. So then you can toggle back through and I'll turn everything back on. Just kind of another aspect of this wizard that people really don't realize. So you have your freeform, where you can grab and pull material accordingly. You close some black triangles. And then all the secondary views you can make adjustments in as well. So at this point, let's say we're happy with the design, and we'll go ahead and move forward by selecting next. And that's going to bring us to the point where we can kind of really view the before and after with this slide bar. So this is a new feature. It's pretty cool. So you can kind of go back and forth and really inspect your design, make sure it's everywhere, you know, from a length, width, and thickness that you want. So from there, this is really going to start to fine tune what our PDF generation is going to look like. So we have tooth shades, basic Vita shades that you can select from, where if you just want to kind of get a quick representation of what that shade's going to look like for the patient. Then there's adjust tooth color from a slide bar. So you can adjust accordingly to kind of fine tune that shade. Also custom color selection, where all you people out there that understand color theory, you can really fine tune all these with the slide bars. Then there's droppers to where you can select base shades from the patient's existing teeth. So you can do a base shade and a highlight color. But on the standard color selection, one of our new features here that I really like is use 2D color bar. So within here, you're going to have a dropper for your tooth base color. So it's the same principle. Anytime this is highlighted orange, then you can left click and drag accordingly. And then from there, you can do a highlight color. And I'm just left clicking and dragging my mouse till I find a representation that I like. So it gives a little bit more of, instead of a monochromatic representation, you'll actually be able to see more of a kind of a transition with shading and give a little bit more of a realistic rendering. So this is a really great feature. I definitely love to use in those regards. So I'll go ahead and close this, and looking within visual properties as well, you can switch your rendering from your full tooth, your preview, or back to your outline. And then also you can adjust image brightness, you know, depending on the camera that was used and the lighting. You may need to fine tune that to help guide the visuals for you a little bit better, and adjust tooth light as well. So this is kind of a virtual light that you can kind of move around and see your line angles a little bit better. It's a, you know, very helpful tool when you're kind of QCing your own designs. And then also export smile image. So from here, like I said, our software is going to automatically generate a PDF in the next step, but you can copy these images and paste them into another software, or you know, really you have a lot of options with what you can do with the software at that point. So from here, we're going to go ahead and select next. And this is going to bring us to the Smile Creator report. So this is a awesome feature to where you can really customize the layout, you know, any type of whether you want to go more of a portrait or landscape mode, and the theme. So mine's on dark mode, but you can adjust this also. So, if you're just sending out to the patient, you can give them, the file that they can upload on their phone, their tablet, computer. They can show all their friends, family, and coworkers, and really kind of show them what they're thinking about, what restorative work they're looking to get. And then also from a size standpoint, you can adjust and margins as well. So one thing to note with the report, so there's a lot of information in here. So it starts off with this overview page. It'll show you before and after. And then for tooth design, so you can really see the length and everything and the ratios that were put in place with this design. And it gives you the outline so you can kind of see the before and after. And from here, you can select print all content or tailor what you want. So depending on how much information you want to provide to your customer, you can really fine tune that and just share what you want to. So anything from your helper lines, the scans before or after the design. So it's a lot of information there. And then from here, you can export it or print. It will be shared or saved to your project folder, so you don't have to worry about that. So once I select done, at that point, we could just provide the PDF like we were talking about for option 1. And then option 2, I'm going to go ahead and actually overwrite those tooth model files. And the second option that we have is to actually create the mock-up to be ready for production. So whether you're 3D printing or milling, one thing to point out too, it's a new feature, is the smile window. So once I'm in this stage, I have full functionality of our tooth placement. So I personally like to use advanced. So at this point, I can make any minute changes that I see. I can maybe grab some corners of the material, kind of cover some gingival embrasures a little bit better. And also kind of fill in there. At this point, as I'm making adaptations, you'll see that on the smile window as well. So you can kind of see in both areas. So it's kind of nice to see that live representation of the changes you are making. And we can maybe close some black triangles accordingly. Okay. Another nice thing too with having the full functionality here of the tooth placement wizard is, you may want to change the shape, the overall shape of from flat to pointed on the patient's smile design. So really at any point you have that functionality to where you can adjust the overall appearance of the library itself. So it's kind of nice. And then within the smile window, if you make any adaptations, you can regenerate that PDF. And the software won't necessarily overwrite the initial one, so you can actually show both PDFs to the patient if you do drastic changes to give them some options. So it's a really great feature. You can see here this notification history here. So this bell icon, it's going to tell you all the steps that have taken place, so you can toggle through there and see all the steps that have been made. Okay, so from here we can visually inspect. So we are going to be designing a mock-up. So like I said, we are going to be a little bit more labial or facial version. We're going to be a little bit thicker. So I'm going to go ahead and select next. And we're going to overwrite those tooth model designs. And once again, the premise of this is once the patient's prepped, these files are saved in the project folder. So the 3D files, and then you'll have the ability to change in the DentalDB, the restorative option. And when you reopen that case, the software will recognize it. You can load that design in and you don't have to redesign. So right now we're looking at our insertion direction. Since we're doing a mock-up, I'm going to do more of a facial insertion. and I'm going to set insertion direction from view. And at this point, I'll hit apply. And once I hit apply, the software is going to utilize any settings that are in the block out undercuts and the bottom properties to really create that virtual block out. So our internal fit is all controlled by these two sidebars, or these two drop downs, and your insertion direction. Once that's completed, you can go to freeforming, and I know some people like to actually remove some block out, maybe in some interproximals, to get a little bit more retentive fit. So that's really kind of up to you to fine tune that. I always recommend just starting off with default settings and really working with the reseller of the machine that you're producing these with. So we'll go ahead and select next. And that'll bring us to connectors. At this point, since I set this up as a bridge within the DentalDB, we'll have the ability to kind of place connectors. When I'm doing mockups, the main thing I'm looking for is that I don't have any visible pieces of the connector available. So one thing to note is you can go to multi-view design and left click and drag control points accordingly. One feature that I really like is that in these secondary views, they are drop down. So any ring that you adjust, you can copy that to another section of the arch form. So basically you can adjust one area and then use it for everywhere else. So I'm going to go ahead and select next and keep those connectors that we had placed. And now the software has created a virtual Waxup scan. So once we do that, I'm going to go ahead and select next, and that's going to bring us to our freeforming wizard. So within freeforming, we'll have the full functionality to remove any material that we don't want part of the mockup. So I typically come in here with smooth, and I'll hold shift to kind of just take down any areas. Maybe turn up my intensity a little bit. There we go. So anything that's present, the software is going to do a hard cut here shortly. So any areas that we don't want to be part of the patient's mock-up design that we're going to print out for them, we'll just go ahead and use remove and get rid of any of that material with conjunction of smooth and remove. That's what I like to use. And then I come back from a facial side and I can kind of see any aspects that need to be changed. I'll turn on visualize mock-up thickness. So this checkbox allows you to see how thick the material is. And at that point, we can add or remove any material to make sure it does produce the way we want it. So kind of come back in between, just a couple of clicks. And the nice thing is if you just do single clicks, the software does a great job of maintaining anatomy of the library. So from here, once we're happy with that design, we can cut all intersections. And at that point, the software is going to remove any excess material that's protruding through the scan and basically create that wearable diagnostic Waxup we spoke of. So we can kind of see now that we have a solid object. It's all one piece. And everything's complete at this point. So we would go by selecting next, and that'll bring us to our merge and save restorations. So at this point, we've had options 1 and 2 completed. So we have our PDF, and we also have our mock-up that we can produce for the patient to wear. The next option we have would be designing our models. So with design model, we'll go ahead and select next. And that's going to bring up model creator. So what we're going to do within the model alignment, we'll see a drop down here for model type. I'm going to scroll down to digital Waxup model. And once I select that, we're telling the software that we want to include our design on the model that we want to 3D print or mill. So from there, you're going to see presets. So from here, you're going to be able to scroll through and look at any printer options that are integrated. So we have a lot of them. You can check that out on our website as well. But I'll just go ahead and select a printer, and then you'll see different resins that are correlated with that printer. So the great thing about this is all the manufacturers provide the settings for the resins that'll be used with their machines. So you don't have to guess if it's going to come out properly. This is all coming from the manufacturer. So I highly recommend, if you have a printer that's integrated, to look at those options. So once those are selected, you will have the ability to adjust your model height. So these scroll bars will allow you to increase or decrease the base height. If you hold Control, you'll be able to adjust the angulation of the arch forms within those bounding boxes. And then you can always left click and drag accordingly to center within those the bounding areas. And once that's completed, you can go ahead and select Next. And now you'll see the ability for full ponic or anatomic Waxup. So I didn't cut away the linguals before the digital Waxup scan was created. So basically our tooth model files will be able to utilize the full ponics, but we can print the model with just the anatomic Waxup as well. So it's really kind of up to you on what you want to do. And then one thing to bring up as well is omit antagonists. So anytime you're doing this type of workflow, the software is going to not produce the opposing model by default. So typically when you're doing Waxup models, a lot of times they don't get articulated, but we'll go ahead and unselect that just to kind of show you the process. So once I select Next, the software is going to start to create those bases based off of the printer and the resin we selected. So you'll have, the proper settings put in place, and everything will be produced the way you intended. And once our upper arch is completed, we'll go ahead and select Next, and then we'll go ahead and start working on our opposing model. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select Next again, allow that antagonist model to be generated. And after this, I just want to show you a couple options for kind of fine-tuning the digital model for before fabrication. So we can add text or articulator attachments. So we got some really cool new articulators that are available now as a separate module. Okay, so now that we're in model attachments, so like I was saying, you can add patient, maybe a patient name, or maybe your lab or dental practice name. And if you go to add text, it's as simple as just left clicking, and then you can kind of drag accordingly wherever you want that label to be. So from there, if you wanted to adjust, font size or thickness, so whether you're doing add or subtractive text, that thickness is going to really deem how much material is either coming off of the model, or subtractive, how much material is going to be recessed from the model. And then from an attachment standpoint, like I was saying, one of our new features here is X-Snap. So you're going to see different degrees. So these are all preset condyle angles, so where you can essentially left click on each quadrant to place that articulator. So you can kind of see now they're placed and they're locked together. So, and I can left click and drag them accordingly, and they're going to stay in the proper relation to each other. So the cool part about this, you can kind of see in the back here, there's kind of like a ball and socket here that allows you to 3D print a fully functioning articulator. So it's really awesome feature. I've gotten a lot of great feedback from people who have utilized this, and they're really happy with it. And then you can also adjust the hinge clearance. So if you want a little bit of a tighter or looser connection with the ball and socket, you have the ability to do so. Also within here from a 3D printing standpoint, if you want to add some drain holes so you don't allow any trapped resin or creating more of a vacuum if you're printing directly to the base of the printer. So you have the ability to kind of add those wherever you want. So allow that trapped resin to kind of excess out and not create a vacuum when connected to the build plate. And then from there, you have full functionality to adjust positioning and size. But I'm going to go ahead and select next just so we can have this generated so you guys can move on to the next step. Once this is finished, we'll have the ability to actually send this file out via DentalShare. So, or if you have your own printer, you could utilize a feature we call exoprint. So we can kind of go over both steps and really show you the different aspects, whether you have that production capabilities within your facility or not, or if you need to outsource, send the file for someone to 3D print the model and or the mock-up design. So as I select I'm done, we'll go ahead and save our scene. Okay, so within our DentalDB here, we can see now our software has our CAD and model created. If we did have a printer software installed, we could go ahead and select that for our exoprint. And then you'll get a window that pops up that allows you to select which type of files you want to add to your base. And then you can proceed to printing, and the software is going to automatically load those files into that printer's software for you. So it's a big time saver. And at this point, you can see my parts have been loaded, and then you would just finish your nesting process. I'll go ahead and close out of that. I just wanted to show that functionality. But also within the software, like I talked about, was DentalShare. So if you're not aware of it, it's a easy way to create an account and collaborate with either laboratories, dentists, or manufacturing facilities. So whether you have designed the case already or not, so you have a lot of options when it comes to collaboration. So as I select DentalShare, I'm going to move my window up here. So basically, I have the case loaded. I selected DentalShare, and then from there, I select what type of service I want. So whether I want perhaps a dentist, if I'm a lab, if I want them to review the design, or if I want production or model production. So a lot of different options within here. So any type of restorative workflow that you're doing or appliances, you can kind of quickly share that with other facilities that use our software. So let's say we were wanting the model production done. At that point, we can select what recipient and then fine tune all of the files that we will be sending. So if I hit OK, the software is actually going to send that file to the facility I want to produce those models for me. So it's a quick, easy upload process. At any time, you can go to details. You can send messages back and forth from sending facility to receiving facility. So it's a great communication tool from back and forth too, especially if you're having someone else design cases for you. It's something I highly recommend checking out and utilizing. It's then other than that, that's pretty much what we were going to cover today. Lucas, did we have any questions that came up?
Not too many so far, but just one thing. One thing that did come up when you're working on the Smile Creator case, there was a question about, okay, we went through the Smile design, we have designed mock-up. How do we take that to the next step after the
Oh yeah,
patient by treatment? Uh, Teeth are prepared. I
yeah,
suggested one way using the add remove mesh tool. You can bring in your prepared scan.
sure. Yeah, I can show that. So I'm going to go ahead and change the restorative option here. We're going to switch that to anatomic crown. And for those of you who aren't aware, you can left click and drag to copy an option to another tooth. Or if I'm doing teeth in sequential order, I can just hold shift on my keyboard and left click on that next tooth. So right now we actually just change all the restorative options there for those teeth, and then I'll save it. So in this case, um, we'll go ahead and proceed. The window came up because I had sent it out via Dental Share already. But we'll go ahead and reopen the design software. So at this point, we're simulating if the patient was prepped and we received a new scan from the dentist. So as we open up DentalCAD, the software, as I was saying, loads scan data only. So as you're restarting this, it's recognizing that first scene file that we just went through. But now it's asking if I want to load those tooth models in. So if I select yes, load previously designed tooth models, at this point, it's bringing in the designs we just completed. So, and it's going to bring you to margin line detection. So we still have our unprepped model saved. So I'm going to go to expert mode, then into tools, and add remove mesh. So with add remove mesh, you're going to see this window pop up, and you'll have the ability at any time within the design to add any type of scan data. So whether you're doing adding a pre-op or a Waxup scan you forgot to load in, a face scan you want to add, bite alignments, scan markers for those implant cases. But in this scenario, we're going to select extra jaw scan, and then I'm going to go to load. And I actually have the prepped upper jaw scan. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. It's already in pretty good alignment, but I'll take you through the alignment process already, or anyways. So we'll select OK. And from here, if I just hover over the bottom of the screen within expert mode, I'm going to see a toolbar, and it's really guiding me. You can see it's highlighted in orange. We have to do that scan alignment. So at this point, it's going to section off our views here. And one of the main things that you want to do is just get your scans within the same orientation. And once they're facing the same direction, it's as simple as just left clicking one point on each object. And then the software is going to automatically align those for you. And then from there, you'll have options if you want to merge the scan data. So that'd be combining both together. Transfer surface regions. So if you just wanted to add the preps only, or replace the whole scan data. So that's what I'm going to do in this scenario. We do have a pretty good full arch scan. So at this point, now we can see our design is actually superimposed on our preparation model. And all we would need to do is go through the wizard workflow, mark our margins, and then proceed throughout the case to connect our previously designed tooth libraries and our new marked margins. So you may need to make any adjustments. I didn't pay too much attention to the lingual surfaces. So at that point, you would just make any fine, minute changes and go from there.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Dan. We don't have any other questions so far. If anybody else does have a question, go ahead and type that in, as long as it's related to the workflows that we went over, and we'll try to get that answered in the next couple of minutes or so.
Okay. I didn't really point out, but you can see that this did turn green earlier. But that's like, signifying that the person I sent the file to has received it. Then if you go in details, if they had any messages they had sent, they would be visit there, but looks like everything's good to go.
Yes, we have no more questions. I think we're good, Dan.
All
Oh,
right.
then one last question. Do we recommend connecting like a bridge for mock-up workflow?
Um,
Uh,
I,
I think you did in your case, right? You have connectors
yeah,
on for the.
yeah. And to do that, you would just left click these these areas, and those will be present. Those circles there, if you have the same materials selected. I would say majority of the time you would want to splint them or make them a bridge. Um, if it's just for the patient to try on to see, um, obviously depends which teeth you're trying to cover with this workflow. But if you're having sequential teeth, if you don't do that, I mean, essentially you're going to have separate piece for every tooth location, and for placing in the patient's mouth, it's a lot easier to be splinted or as one piece. You got anything to add to that, Lucas?
Yeah, I guess just one scenario where maybe you wouldn't connect them. If you're going through the mock-up workflow, just to design like a diagnostic wax-up model. You're going to print the model with your design there. Technically, you wouldn't need the connectors. So I guess it depends if, like Dan said, if you're going to produce a try-on smile or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
One last thing came in. Can we work with impression scans? So maybe you're talking about digital impression scans, and absolutely, we have a lot of people working with intraoral scanners with our software. If you're talking about scanning physical impressions, that works also. We didn't go over that today, but there is a tool in software to flip your meshes over. If you have a negative scan of an impression, we can work with those in the software as well. All right, I think that looks like about it.
All right. Well, once again, I want to say thanks to everybody that joined us. I hope you all enjoy the new features of the software as much as we do, and hopefully we'll all see you at Insights, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining.